is Off Script with Trish Glose, intimate interviews and conversations with interesting people. In front of my microphone today is Judge Laura Cromwell.
Hi, Trish.
Hi. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
And you are just recently elected Jackson County Circuit Court Judge.
Yes. I was appointed back in September and then just recently elected on November 6th.
We're going to talk about the journey to being a judge.
Okay.
The judge journey a little bit, because I'm curious. Before that, you were actually at the DA's office for a long time.
Yes, for about 11 years. I was,
wow.
Yeah,
okay.
Prosecutor.
So we're going to talk about that and how you got to be where you are today. But first of all, where are you from originally?
Originally, I'm from Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Okay.
Born and raised there.
And raised, how long were you there?
Till I was 18, and I moved to Oregon to go to school at Willamette in Salem.
Wow, so that's home.
At home, yeah, absolutely.
Are your folks still there? My
folks are still there. They still live in their, it's a little adobe, everything there is adobe. So they live in their tiny little adobe house, and it's a neat place.
We've talked about New Mexico before. My parents lived in Albuquerque, I want to say for like 4 years, 5 years maybe, and we went to Santa Fe a couple times to visit.
Yeah.
I didn't know people could be from Santa Fe.
Yeah, you can actually be from there. It's it's actually about the size of Medford.
Okay.
And but it's very quaint. It's very artsy. There's a lot of history there, and so it's really neat.
Super artsy. In fact, they have is it called the portico? Am I naming that right?
I'm just trying. Oh, are you thinking where the Board of the Governors, or the Governor's Mansion, which is really, again, just an adobe building, is, and all the Native Americans is that where you're talking? Have all their jewelry laid out under there, and it's just, and they sell just amazing jewelry there. Every time we go home, I have to get a new piece of turquoise.
But if you're under there, if you're selling under there, you're legit.
Legit. Like you cannot, you have to be a, the certain percentage, or so, and that's all handmade stuff. It is not.
It's amazing.
Made. Yeah,
it's amazing really, the idea that it is handmade, especially these turquoise pieces.
Yeah, it is. It is amazing, and some you'll see some of the women there, in Santa Fe, with like these big chunky, turquoise pieces. It's neat. Yeah.
That's awesome. And Santa Fe's high desert, so you got snow.
Oh, you got a lot of snow. It's up at 7,000 feet, so it's very cold in the winter. Yeah.
Okay. Do you go visit?
I do. We visit probably every couple of years. My parents tend to come out and visit us more because they're retired, but yeah, we'll go back every few years.
I love Santa Fe. Yeah. Such a beautiful place.
Yeah.
And then, funny story about Santa Fe, I actually told you this. When we were visiting, we were living in Oregon at the time, and we go with my parents to Santa Fe. We go to this bar that has 400 beers, in bottles or on tap or whatever. My husband, Chuck, says, just give me a beer that you really think is great. And the bartender was like, I've got a great beer for you. And he brings him a Rogue Ale.
Yeah, and that makes sense because, Oregon has all the best microbrews.
Yes.
New Mexico is not really known for their good beer. So.
They're known for other things. So you grew up in Santa Fe. Only child or siblings?
I have a sibling. I have an older sister, 2.5 years older than me.
Okay, so you're the baby.
I'm the baby. Yes.
High five on being the baby. I like it. Did you guys get along?
No, we fought like cats and dogs when we were little. We get along now, but we were horrific to each other. In fact, I think that was the first time that my parents finally, we had been fighting our whole lives, and finally when we got, she was in college and came back, and I was 18 and in high school, and we got in our last physical fight at that point, and my parents were like, that's it, you're going to counseling together.
Nice.
They forced
Way to keep it honest.
Yeah.
So just physically fought and verbally fought?
Verbally, physically. I was always bigger than she was. I was, I wasn't taller, and I was also had a little bit more meat on my bones at that time, and so that was really my only way to combat her. She was pretty bossy.
Oh.
And so I would just hold her down and,
nice.
Torture her. Yeah.
Good. How much older?
So, she's about 2.5 years older than me.
Oh,
so.
that is pretty close.
Yeah. A lot of fighting over the bathroom and.
Oh, well, duh. I blame your parents.
One bathroom for two.
Come on, guys.
Although I have stepkids and 3 stepgirls, and we, at one point before we moved into our house that we're living in now, we had to save up money. We had them all in one room, and my husband built them a triple-decker bunk.
Nice.
And I think the oldest one was 14 at that time. And can you imagine 3 girls in one tiny room?
No.
They were amazing. I don't know how they didn't kill each other. They just don't fight the way I fought with my sister.
It's a lot of hormones in one room.
Of girls.
But I will say those 3 girls are pretty amazing.
They're fabulous. I'm really lucky to be, a stepmom of such wonderful girls.
Because you could be like, they could have been like you and your sister.
Oh, they could have been horrific.
What's your sister's name?
Emily.
Emily.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you and Emily are now getting along.
We do now get along. She's great. She's a mother to my niece, and I, just a great family.
Awesome. So childhood was a little, at least with your sister, a little tumultuous
Yes.
at times. What were you like in high school? I picture you as like a super big nerd.
I was definitely a very
I see that
big,
with love.
Yeah. No, I definitely was a very big nerd. I was valedictorian in my class, which never happened after that. I was in college, meh.
I'm not
In law
surprised,
school, meh.
Laura. I'm not surprised.
But I also played a lot of sports too, and so I did volleyball and basketball and softball, and so I was kind of a nerdy jock.
Yeah. So you were one of the girls in high school that I like wanted to hate so badly, but I probably couldn't. Super smart and very good at and athletic.
Yeah, and completely invisible to boys, which was the bane of my existence back in high school.
Really?
Yes, absolutely.
I find that hard to believe.
No, I'm not kidding. I was a late bloomer for sure.
Oh, well, yeah. Cheers to that. I was also a late bloomer. I also thought, especially in middle school and the beginning of high school, I thought boys were disgusting.
I was very much a tomboy when I was little.
Yeah.
And so, it was all wrestling and fighting.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So what made you decide to do college? Because you were at law school in Oregon, of all places.
So, I did my undergraduate in Oregon, and I had never really been up here before. My dad took me to a couple different places to look, and turns out that the day we came to Willamette to just look at it, I think it was a Saturday, and there was we're taking a tour around the campus, and there's some frat guy leaning outside the his window, totally drunk still, and it's just
Awesome.
come to Willamette. This is the place to be. And I told my dad, I'm going here. This is it. This is what I look for in a school.
So you did undergrad at Willamette?
Yes, and then I went down to Texas for law school, San Antonio.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but I guess Oregon, what made you pick this state?
You know what? When just growing up in high desert, I always had seen pictures of Oregon. It was lush and green and rainy, and I loved that.
Uh-huh.
I thought that would be so cozy.
You're like, I need something green in my life now.
Yeah, I need something green, yeah.
Okay.
So, I loved the look of it.
And then, so what made you decide to ultimately go into law school? That's a huge commitment.
It is. And so when I was, a teenager, I wanted to be a veterinarian. I always wanted to be a vet. I worked for vets from the age I was, from 14, the second I could legally work, I worked for veterinarians until I was through college. And I went in, I was a biology major, initially, and I figured that I actually was really terrible. I was really shitty at biology. And
Perfect.
So my second semester, my junior year, I'm like, this is not working. I'm not going to do really well. And so I quit, biology. I changed my major to Spanish. I went to Spain for a semester, and I loved it. And so once I graduated, I'm thinking, okay, what am I going to do with my degree? And thought I'd have a lot of options, and I didn't. So the first job I got was right out of college. I got an entry-level position for the Multnomah County DA's office, just as a front desk clerk, bilingual, so that I could, help them out in their child support division.
Wow.
And so, I worked my way up there, and eventually I thought, maybe I'll be a prosecutor. And so that's why I went back to law school.
Interesting. What law school?
St. Mary's in San Antonio, Texas. Okay. Yeah.
So was it the idea that you were there, were you listening or hearing little bits and pieces of cases, and that kind of sparked your interest?
Absolutely, yeah. And the criminal side, even though I was in the child support side, you'd hear little bits of the criminal side. And that was, I think I was pretty sheltered as a kid. I was like, we're just watching PBS, like that type of family.
Sure. Yeah.
And so all the gore and the, all that good juicy stuff really appealed to me, I think, because I'd been sheltered from it. And so I thought, God, I really want to go into criminal law.
What was law school like?
Law school was, I actually loved law school. It was fun. San Antonio is a very fun place to live. It's really the life of the party. And even I remember when I was working, I had interned for the DA's office down there, which is like 300 attorneys. It's an enormous office. And during fiestas, which they have once a year, they, gave us $20. I don't know where the money came from, but they gave us $20. Have fun, go out. This is during the middle of a work day, and go have some fun. Don't come back to work drunk. And, if you're drunk, go home.
Don't ask questions.
Don't ask questions.
$20 came
from.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, all right. So
that's awesome.
It was fun.
Yeah.
It was very fun.
It sounds amazing. And so I guess I have this vision of law school that it's just, you're always studying. You're always busy.
It is a lot of studying. I honestly have not really read since law school, which is sad because I used to be an avid reader, but you read so much in law school and it's just dense, case law and text and stuff like that I kind of got burned out on that. But yeah, sure. It's a lot, but it's also a lot of fun too. There's a lot of socializing that goes on. And I think good lawyers also know that there's really an art to being able to have a social, back and forth with people rather than, and there's people that are at the top of their class that go on to work amazing jobs, but the vast majority of lawyers need to know how to
talk to people. Maybe just a teeny bit.
Yeah.
Was the choice to go to San Antonio, was that to keep up that bilingual?
Well, it was the vast majority of that school was Latino.
Okay.
And I really just loved, growing up in New Mexico, I was definitely a minority there when I was younger.
Right.
And so having that, I missed that culture a lot when I moved to Oregon. That was one thing that was really obvious to me, was that it's pretty, white up here. And so I thought, it was the only place. I just applied to one school, and that was St. Mary's, and I thought, I just want to go back down to that atmosphere again for a few years. So
yeah, I agree. I think it is nice, especially when you travel to big cities.
Yeah.
It's nice to see, I just say, different colors and shapes and sizes.
Right, exactly.
Because that's how we're made. We're not all made to be in this mold.
Exactly.
So I like that too. Was there a professor at St. Mary's that really sticks out to you?
Yes, absolutely. John Teeter. And I remember, he's still, a Facebook friend of mine to this day, but he was one of those professors who you were absolutely enthralled in his class, partially because he scared the living shit out of you. And would absolutely call you out in front of everyone.
Yes.
But also because he was so funny and so humorous and just such a kind human underneath it all. And he was amazing. It was a Catholic school. He was a Buddhist. And he actually took me to, I eventually started going with him to this Nichiren Buddhist temple for a few times because I had kind of expressed an interest to him. And it was just a neat, go figure, and go to a Catholic school to become a Buddhist.
Yeah.
But I'm not still a practicing Buddhist, nor was I ever really practicing, but it just interested me.
Just something to learn.
Yeah, absolutely.
Something new to learn. Do you think that those professors were tough because, you have to, ultimately, as an attorney, you have to be tough. And
absolutely.
It's a lot of confrontation and asking the tough questions.
It is a lot of confrontation, and I think you go into law school, and they are a lot of times trying to present themselves as a judge. A judge is going to give it to you if they, there's...
Right.
And so you really do have to get a thick skin through that process.
For sure.
Yeah.
So that does make sense. All right. So you graduate from law school.
Yep.
Do you come right back to Oregon? What happens next?
Yes. So I married. I was married to somebody who I had known in Portland before I went down there. So I'd worked for a few years, then go down back to law school, And we got married while I was in law school. So we came back to Portland after that, studying for the bar. And then things kind of fall apart once we're back in Oregon.
It happens.
You know.
So studying for the bar, how long after you graduate from law school how long from that until you take the bar?
Well, so it is immediately after. So you get back in May, bar is in July. And I failed the bar my first time.
Okay.
And that was the first test I had ever really failed in my life. And that was horrific. I missed the cutoff by, it was like 0.004%. It was ridiculous. And there was no appeals they had stopped the appeal process. And so I'm like, wow, I just got to redo this. So I went back to the DA's office in Multnomah County, became just a subpoena clerk for them while I studied for the bar again in February. So they offer it twice a year. So I had to take it the following February, and luckily
you passed.
I
would think that would be very devastating for you, someone who valedictorian and a little bit of an overachiever.
And very much a perfectionist. Everything has to be in its spot and very OCD and so that was a wake-up call.
I bet.
Yeah.
Well, I think sometimes not to say, because trust me, I did not go to law school and I'm not an overachiever, but I am that perfectionist and I have tended to be pretty good at things my whole life.
Absolutely.
And so then when you get a slap in the face of like, no, you failed this,
you're
like, wait, excuse me?
Wait, you guys have this wrong.
Yeah, what's wrong with your system?
Exactly.
Right.
That was a surprise but a reality check that I think in the end benefited me.
I was just going to say that. Very humbling.
Humbling,
You're
yes.
like, okay, I'm not good at everything.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure. So hubby number one doesn't work out.
Nope. And so
divorce in Portland?
I ended up leaving 2 weeks before the second bar exam.
Okay.
And I moved in with a friend of mine, and a great girlfriend that I had, girlfriend up there, and she was wonderful. Kind of took me in, and that at that point, as soon as I take the bar exam, I send out a letter of introduction to every single county DA's office in Oregon. I was like, no, I want to be a prosecutor. That's all I'm going to be. I know that's what I want to be.
And you wanted to be in Oregon.
In Oregon.
Okay.
Well, I knew I wanted to be in Oregon because I was taking the Oregon bar. After the divorce, I had actually signed up again to take the Texas bar.
Oh, okay.
As well. And so I send this letter out to every single county. And Mark Huddleston from the DA's office here was the first person to say, hey, by the way, we have an opening, come interview.
Wow.
And so I came down and interviewed, and once I got the job, I was signed up for the Texas bar 2 weeks later. And so I didn't say that during my...
Sure, of course not.
Right? During my interview. And I felt so guilty afterwards. I'm like, I wasn't... he didn't ask about it, but I also didn't, he also wanted somebody who was going to stay a little bit longer.
For sure.
And I'd already planned, I'm going to stay here a year, get out of Medford, be done with it, and go back down to Texas. And so after the interview, I write to Huddleston. I said, I feel that I just need to be honest with you. I am signed up for the Texas bar.
Okay.
And, but I do want to give it a shot here. And so I get the job. And I ended up eating the money on the Texas bar and the flight down there, and I just decided just to stay. Once I was here, it was a fit.
What year was that?
That was 2007.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess how much is it to take the bar?
Well, oh gosh, I just remember it being like, I think it was like $1,000 and then plus the flight down there. And
what?
If I remember correctly, I think that's what the Texas bar was. I could be wrong, but...
There's something wrong with that. Shouldn't it just be free?
It should be free for everyone.
I mean, you went to law school for what, 3 years, 4 years?
Right, which is expensive, and
They can't give you the bar for free?
No.
Come on. There's something wrong. I'm going to do a story on that.
Yeah.
I'm going to investigate.
Investigative.
Was Oregon's bar exams pricey too?
I don't remember it being as pricey, but I think so. I can't remember that far back.
I feel like there's some systems, and I'm not bashing on that because I don't know anything about the bar system, but can we just help people be successful?
Right. Yeah. they really try to thin out the herd, and especially the law school I went to. I mean, we started, with a class of, I think, 300, and they try to thin it out, as much as possible. If you're going to Harvard, they're probably not thinning out the herd as much as that.
Right.
But by the end, we're about 100 people left in our class.
I'm assuming you want people who pay for this bar exam to be serious about becoming an attorney.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. I won't investigate. You're off the hook, bar people. So this is, you said 2000 what? You took the job?
2007.
Okay, 2007 you take this job. And you're kind of are you planning to be here for a while or not long?
No, I wasn't planning to be here long. And one of my boss at the DA's office, who's now a judge, introduced me or tried to introduce me to my now husband.
Who's your boss now?
Well, it was.
Oh, it was.
It was, Tim Barnack, who's now judge,
okay.
right?
Okay, yes.
And so, he takes me for a ride along and tries to, kind of pawn me off on Mark, which didn't really work. And
right along with the Medford Police Department.
Right, correct.
Okay.
Yes, because that's right. I skipped over that part.
That's okay.
So my husband, at that time was a patrol officer with Medford Police
This is
Department.
Mark Cromwell, who is actually
Shout out.
Yeah, I don't ever want to socially hang out with him because he knows more people in this area.
He knows a ridiculous amount of people.
It's annoying.
It's really annoying. Try going to the store with him.
Oh, I'm sure. And it was like, "Hey, Mark," and I'm just like, "Hey, hello, I'm on TV."
You know what? Actually, we just had this conversation this morning. He goes, Trish Glose is pretty popular, and I'm like, I know that.
And then you should have been like, actually, she's not as popular as you, Mark Cromwell. But there's the Cromwell brothers, right?
Yes, the Cromwell brothers have been around forever. They all were in sports in high school, and then he owned Rosario's for a while. So he
knows a lot of people.
And he's a social butterfly, unlike me. He just,
And he's just the sweetest on the planet. So he's a patrol officer. You do a ride along with him.
Yeah. And nothing, I was kind of like, I don't really want to date a police officer, not because they're a police officer, but because it's so cliche for the DA and the police officer. It's like, oh, come on.
Or the reporter and the firefighter.
Right, yeah. Come on.
I also met on a ride along.
Yeah, there you go, right? And so I was
cliche.
like, not really into it. And then he comes into my office a few weeks later, and he asked me some really stupid question that I actually didn't know the answer, a legal question. I didn't know the answer to because I was brand new.
Okay.
He did know the answer to, but he asked anyway. And,
Slick.
Yeah. So we arranged to, just go have a beer.
And the rest is history.
The rest is history.
Yeah, you guys got married when?
We got married in 2011, so we started dating about early 2008.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Before we talk about Mark, because I do want to talk about Mark.
Yes.
You're in the DA's office. You were there for 11 years.
Yeah.
And you had kind of your niche too, like the cases that you worked on.
Right. And so, it starts out, when you start out as a DA, you're doing the typical misdemeanor caseload, like a lot of DUIs, a lot of, bar fights, assaults, minor assaults, stuff like that. And then I moved into domestic violence for a few years, and that was really intense caseload.
Yeah.
And then moved into, did a drug caseload for a while, and then did mental health caseload.
And you saw some crazy things.
Absolutely. And that mental health caseload, we have a mental health court, so as the liaison, for our mental health court.
Right.
We also do all of our civil commitments for Jackson County, so anyone who's a danger to themselves, others unable to care for themselves. And so it's going to the behavioral health unit at Asante and, doing commitment hearings. And then any case involving major mental health disorders and defenses. And so that's where I saw just some really, very sad and very horrific things. Yeah.
Is there a case, and I know this is probably totally throw you under the bus, a case in those 11 years that really sticks out for you?
Yeah, the one case there was a domestic violence murder case with Bornay Huddleston.
Yeah.
And that was just, that case to this day affects me. And he was somebody who had, was very charismatic and really diabolical. And he ended up he had hired a couple of hitmen to murder his wife.
Right.
They decide not to do it, and so he eventually does it, and then claim that she had committed suicide. And so, but the worst part about that case, the part that really affected me, is that he had left his young boy, I think he was 9 at the time, to render first aid to his dying mother who had been shot in the head. And this kid did it. I mean, he tried mouth to mouth on her. He worked on her with, 911 in the background for probably 20, 25 minutes before anyone arrived. And by the time, and not to get dark, but by the time the police had arrived, I remember reading the reports of the initial responding officers who, this kid comes to the door and he's got, just blood all over his mouth from giving mouth to mouth to his dying mother, and just can't really talk at that point, just points to the back bedroom. They said it was something like out of a horror movie because this kid was in shock, and, and so it was such a horrific scene, and that is, to this day, that case breaks my heart, and that family they were such a wonderful family. And
how do you come back from that?
A lot of therapy.
Yeah.
Honestly, a lot of therapy. And that's when I finally realized, because when you're a prosecutor and you get a murder, and it sounds bad, but you have to deal with this stuff somehow. So initially, when you are like, okay, you're going out to a murder scene, it's excitement, it's thrilling, and it's like, okay, let's go out there, and your adrenaline's going, and you don't realize that stuff little by little builds up on you.
For sure.
And eventually it did for me, and I was like, okay, I got to do something about this.
Well, that, and it's, your husband's job
and his job,
and Chuck's job,
right?
And, I look at these first responders and these DAs, and you are witnessing this all the time, and you just sort of put it away somewhere,
right?
Until one day it just
comes up. And I mean, unlike first responders, at least I'm there, there might be a dead body on the floor, but I don't have to save anyone's life. I mean, and go in there or risk my own life. But so that's a whole other level, but it still does you get some vicarious trauma from that.
Well, and you're reading the reports from these guys.
Too, right.
We're just over and over reading it and visualizing it. We all take a piece of the stress.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
The Gary Rep murder trial.
Yeah.
So I was the reporter in the courtroom.
Yeah.
And I just remember stupidly I was reading some murder fiction book at the same time.
Yeah.
And I had to be in court, all day long, and these live shots at noon and 5 and 6, and I'm rushing back to the station and back to the courtroom. My hair was falling out.
Oh my goodness.
Because of the stress.
Yeah, the stress of it.
And you're seeing all of these visions of, Carrie Rep who was murdered, and they're showing it all in the
similar
courtroom.
defense too. Yeah.
Absolutely, it was a crazy case, and that was just for a month that I had to deal with.
No, but it's a lot. Yeah,
it affects you.
It does, for sure.
Yeah, we all definitely take a piece of that stress. So was that really after these 11 years and this kind of like, wow, I've dealt with this a lot? Was that the journey to being a judge?
That really was, and I think the past 3 years with the mental health caseload and seeing what an enormous issue that has become in our valley, that really prompted me. I'm seeing the work that Judge Greif does in our mental health court, seeing the work that Judge Ravasapur and then before her Judge Crane did in our drug courts, and that is the future of the criminal justice system. Yes, we still do have prisons; they still need to be used, but there are people out there who are decent human beings that are enmeshed in either drugs or mental health, that we can actually help in a different way. And that really pushed me to become a judge.
And jail's not really an option for those people.
It's not, and it's the default option, unfortunately. Right. And we have a lot of mentally ill in jail because we need to do something.
Yeah.
And so having a different option is excellent.
Look at all these girl judges we have.
I know. We have a whole 3 girl judges now.
What?
Out of
awesome.
9.
That's awesome.
We're getting there.
Well, congratulations. You just voted.
Thank you.
Voted in as judge, and I'm super excited for you because this is a whole new avenue for you.
It is, and that was, doing a campaign. I never in a million years thought I would run for office because I'm not, I'm more of an introvert.
Right.
And so doing that was really uncomfortable for me, and just in the end was just, I hear people talk about that being humbling experience
Yeah.
where I always thought, I'd be like, yeah, I won,
Right.
kind of thing. But no, it was just like almost kind of sheepish, like, really, me?
Yeah. You guys,
Thank you.
They like me. They really like me.
And it was just very humbling, and just to and that's something I really want to bring into being a judge. I want to remember that this is not a job that's status. This should be a job that's public service. And so I really want to remember that we need to be modest on the bench, and we need to be humble on the bench.
I like it. Yeah, and I think, I tend to sometimes, good thing I have Chuck in my life, because he really does knock me down a peg when I'm getting a little, like, I'm kind of a big deal. He's like, no, you're not. Not really.
I mean, and he and my husband too, they're both very humble people,
right.
And I love that about them.
Same.
Just, yeah.
Well, I was going to say, you had a pretty fantastic campaign manager in
Mark
Cromwell.
Yeah.
So you are dating Mark. He has 3 girls.
Yes.
Was that like, at what point did you go, I think I want to marry this man, but I'm not sure about these 3 girls, or I'm absolutely sure about these 3 girls?
Well, I had been a stepmother before in my first marriage, but the difference is that my stepdaughter in my first marriage was mainly living with her mother, and so I had very little experience.
I didn't know that.
I had a very little experience with her. And so with Mark, and he gets along really well with his ex-wife, and it's really, they do a good job.
Yes.
And it takes 2 mature people to do that, and I really, compliment them for that, because they do an amazing job. But so the idea wasn't foreign to me of being a stepmom, but 3 girls, I'm thinking like, oh wow. But he's such an amazing dad, an amazing father. I think, to me, I didn't really think much about the process of becoming a stepmom. It was they made it fairly easy.
Well, they're really great girls.
They're great girls. And the youngest one had been at a really bad time when they got divorced. She was at a young age. She was about, I think, 4 or 5.
That's so tough.
She was 6 when I finally met her. And it was a tough age for her, and she really was attached, and still is very attached to her mom, and just protective, which I think is so difficult for a kid that age. And so she's the one that gave me a run for my money, which, I actually really appreciate, because and she's amazing. She is an amazing kid now. We get along fabulously.
That's awesome.
But I remember I have to tell you a story. So when we first, she knows I'm kind of, I'm cognizant of the way I dress and the way I present myself.
Okay.
And so I had
Thank goodness.
And so I had a pair, I was big into my shoes and blah, 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 and these high heels that I would wear. So anyway, we go to, Mark had like some sort of evening court right after work, or maybe it was the final hour of work. I can't remember. But he has Madeira that day, and he says, well, will you come with me to just watch her while I'm in court testifying real quick in this municipal court trial? And I'm like, yeah, no problem. So I go over there. She's in a foul mood, does not want to see me. And so...
You're like, thanks, Mark.
right, yeah. So Mark goes up to the front of the courtroom and goes to wait to take the stand. And I'm sitting in the back, and she sits down, same row as me, but way down from me, does not want to sit by me. And so the judge comes into the courtroom, and so she gets a little nervous. So she comes up and like scoots up to me.
Aww.
And she looks down at my shoes, which, I'm wearing my work shoes. So
right.
Tall heels.
Tall
right?
heels.
Tall
yep.
heels.
Only way to do it.
And she looks down at them, and she whispers to me, she says, my mom has better shoes than you do. And I'm like, that is it. How did she know to pick on that one thing?
You're like, oh, hell no.
Which, given her mother does have some fabulous shoes, but I'm like, oh my God, how did she know to do
Pushing
that?
my buttons.
Yep. It was like,
they know how to do that,
they
though.
really do. And, but in the big picture, if that's the worst thing that happens, I think the thing that was tough for me with being a stepmom initially is, they were already with Mark and his 3 girls, they were already like this little family unit, right?
Unit.
They knew each other. They knew how to negotiate around each other, and And so I came in, and I'm kind of like the, fifth wheel at that point. So it's kind of like, Right. And I'm also, they were doing their own thing and very like, I'm more of an introvert, so I kind of need a little bit more alone time. And so it feels like a little left out at times, which I think was really challenging for me as a stepmom. And since then, I mean, I feel just very integrated with that family.
It's amazing. Well, they're crazy about you.
They're just
all of them.
Great girls.
I think it's being a stepmom. You and I have talked about this a lot because I'm a stepmom.
Yeah.
I met Connor when he was 4.
Yeah.
And it's just, you're here by choice.
Right.
And not that should be a pat on our back whatsoever, but we are here in this by choice.
Right.
And
absolutely.
I do think there is a fine balance when you're a stepmom to be involved but not super involved.
Absolutely, because I'm not there to replace their mother.
No.
They have a mother.
Yeah.
And a good mother.
So does Connor. She's great.
Right.
And they have this amazing relationship.
Yeah.
And so I just feel like, you're kind of, I always, said I was wicked stepmom or mom number 2. And I'm absolutely okay with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think at one point, I've got one more quick story.
I know, I love it. I love these stories.
So we were at a soccer game for Mother's Day, and Madera, the youngest again, was, the soccer coach gives her a couple roses to give to Mom. So she goes and gives one to her mom, and then she comes over to me, and she's just like, oh, God, I got to give one to this gal. She's just like, happy fake Mother's Day. I'm like, oh. And so, but it was so funny. So to this day, the girls call me Fakey, which is actually a term of endearment, I love it. Mm-hmm. I've come to love that name because, hey, Fakey, and, and it's just, it's something that was, they take time to get to know you.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, for the youngest, it wasn't an easy thing. And she, it shouldn't be. I mean, she took a while, and she took her time. And that's the way it should be. And you guys,
from now on, will probably have this most amazing relationship because there was that little bit of a headbutt in the beginning.
Absolutely. And so, and I proudly wear my Fakey name.
Good for you. Good for you. No, I think it does come as a badge of honor as a stepmom because you are coming into their life as I don't want to say a stranger, but it's like, who are you?
Who is this? And why? And especially as with girls, it's like, and wait, you're taking over my dad.
Right.
There's another female coming into the mix.
Yeah, and my mom doesn't cook potatoes like that.
Right. Yeah.
Why are you cooking them that way, weirdo? No, I absolutely get that. And so I think being a step-parent, a good step-parent, I applaud those out there who make that choice to...
And I would choose it over and over again.
Same here, 1,000 times.
Yeah.
Because there were rocky points with Connor and I,
Absolutely.
and I would do those a bazillion times over again.
Absolutely.
So I do have one, speaking about your shoes.
Yeah.
I was in court, I think it was for some reason I got picked to be on a jury. And that's where I first was aware of you. Here is this DA, like blonde hair, this like pencil skirt, and this shirt, these high heels. And I'm like, I didn't know prosecutors could be hot. It's like, wow, she's
so
gorgeous. And then obviously we became friends, and I'm like, oh, there's the girl DA that.
And apparently I was dumb enough to put a reporter on my jury. What am I thinking?
I think it was, let's say it was the defense.
Yeah,
they did that. All right, we're going to wrap up a little bit. Final 3, best advice you've ever been given.
Well, I think, and this is, again, through years of therapy, I think what I've kind of learned from that is, especially in jobs where in the criminal justice system or any type of, not that I'm a first responder, but that kind of system is, you tend to look at the world in a very black and white way. Mm-hmm. And tweakers are bad, and, they do bad things, and, people need to be in, it's a very, you tend to take shortcuts, because you have to put all this stuff into little boxes to make it make sense. Mm-hmm. And so what I've learned, I think, and through, the advice of my wonderful therapist, is that really the world is very gray. And it's okay for it to be gray. And it takes a lot of, you're kind of a contortionist to hold all these different pieces and say, there is, a wonderful person underneath that drug addict. And they're not just a tweaker. Mm-hmm. And there actually is somebody who is kind and sincere and loving a lot of the time. And, or different things like that. And so the idea of things being gray is...
that tweaker was someone's child at one time.
Absolutely.
Sweet child.
Sweet child, and oftentimes with something like that, either had a trauma history or was ultra sensitive, really.
And I'm I kind of like giggle a little bit when everybody's, I'm like, my therapist or I'm in therapy. Yeah. It's so important to talk to someone.
Oh my gosh. If I could give a piece of advice, everyone in our, in this field and even elsewhere, get a good therapist.
Yeah. Or talk
really
about
important.
it. Just
talk about it.
Don't leave it inside.
Absolutely.
Because it will explode, and maybe in a really bad way.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you ever left this place, what would bring you back here? What would you miss the most?
The thing that I love the most is, and it's actually coming up this week, is I used to hate the holidays. It was, always a dreary time for me. I didn't like it. But meeting with Mark's family, it's just this big gathering. Everyone gets along. It's laughing. It's, having a whiskey. It's, just cackling with my mother-in-law at the table and playing cards. I love that. And it's all out at our little cabin out in the Applegate. And it's, cozy in there. And I love that. And there's something very special about this valley.
Agreed.
And it's the people, it's the atmosphere, it's a little of everything.
And you have a lot of family here.
Yeah.
By way of Mark Cromwell.
By way of Mark, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. My favorite question.
Yeah.
Final meal, final drink. What would that look like?
Oh, goodness. Okay, so, and you told me that this was coming. So I don't know. They certainly wouldn't be in the same at the same time.
Okay.
But
it's your final meal. You can do whatever you want.
My comfort drink that nobody understands is Campari. I love Campari, and it's my grandparents were from Italy, and I've been drinking Campari. My dad would give me a little sip when I was little, and so since I was a little kid, I've had a little Campari.
Awesome.
And I love it, and it's a comfort drink for me.
Straight.
It's straight on the rocks with a twist.
Wow.
And everyone else thinks it tastes like ass, which
I love Campari, but I love a good Boulevardier, which Campari is in a Boulevardier.
Yes.
So.
Oh, and you introduced me to the what was it? Is it a Negroni with the Campari in it?
It's a Negroni with
so good
rye whiskey instead of gin.
Yes.
So it's the Boulevardier.
Oh, okay. That is it. All right.
Then so good.
That's because I make it now. I didn't know what it was called.
But it's okay. Call it whatever you want.
Yeah. And then a meal, what I love, and I haven't had since I was a kid, but we used to go to visit my grandparents in New York, and it would always be like out on Long Island, and you'd have this like crab feast. And so we'd also sometimes go to this crab restaurant, which was like a hole in the wall. It was a crab shack.
Nice.
And it was paper, newspaper, thrown down, just a bunch of crabs thrown down, butter flying.
Yum.
Lemon flying, and it just probably looked like a murder scene when you're done,
right?
But it's the most like just get dirty.
Right.
Love that. Yes, so that would be it.
I love it. That's a good answer. All right, Laura Cromwell, if you're listening to this podcast on iTunes and you like it, please subscribe, rate, and review. It helps other people find us. We're also on Google Play. You can check out the video portion of this podcast at ktvl.com. Just click on features and then off script. This was one of the best conversations.
Oh, thank you, Trish.
And I learned new things about you.
I know. Thank you so much.
I love it. All right, look out for Badass Judge Laura Cromwell. Thanks, Laura.